This morning in North Carolina, wheels are spinning. Determination is winning. A passion is now a thriving business, and it shows no signs of slowing down. How? The power of a conversation, like the one Clint Spiegel had with First Horizon Bank about starting a bike wheel manufacturing facility in Asheville. Now it's not just talk, it's rubber meets road. First Horizon Bank. Let's find a way. Go to firsthorizon.com/Clint. First Horizon Bank, member FDIC. An avid cyclist dreams of turning his passion into a business. He consults his banker to help find the best path. Now bike wheels are being built, and all it took was a little push to get rolling. First Horizon Bank. Let's find a way. Go to firsthorizon.com/Clint.
Handle with Care, Cancer and Beyond is a podcast that gives everyone and anyone a place to come and keep it real about their cancer experience. Welcome to Handle with Care, Cancer and Beyond.
What's going on? Welcome back to another episode of Handle with Care, Cancer and Beyond. My name is Chris Donovan, the co-host and producer here, and today's show is a great one. It's so great and so long that we had to cut it down into two parts. Now let me explain. Today, Carrie is going to be sitting down with DJ and Hospice Nurse Julie. Carrie and Hospice Nurse Julie met on TikTok because they both are very passionate about normalizing the conversation around death and dying. Now, in the first part of this two-part episode, we find out the difference between palliative care and hospice care and what the death rattle is. There's a whole bunch packed into this episode. Like I said, we had to cut it up into two. So enjoy the first half right now. And while you're listening, go to thecareprojectinc.org or leave us a rating and review. Now, Hospice Nurse Julie and Carrie Madrid, get ready to laugh.
Everybody, welcome back to another edition of Handle with Care. I am Karen. I have my sidekick, DJ.
Hello.
Hey, you've never co-hosted before.
No, this is my very first time.
Well, get on that mic, girl, or Chris is going to be on.
Okay, here it comes.
Chris is not here. Chris is in Mexico right now, hanging out. But I have a very, very, very special guest who I've now deemed my new friend, Julie. Hi.
Hi. Hello, you two. I feel like we are all fast friends.
We are.
It.
So recently I was forced to create a TikTok account for the Care Project / Handle with Care podcast. And it wasn't that I didn't want to, it's that I really don't have any more time to do one more friggin' thing because I already run the Care Project's Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, whatever else we're on now. And so the thought of doing TikTok, and all I knew about it was like, it's this app where people do silly dances and stupid stuff. And I was like, oh, but when I got on there, I started following healthcare professionals like Hospice Nurse Julie. That is her handle on TikTok and Instagram. Okay, first of all, on TikTok, you have over 218,000 followers.
I know. It's crazy. It's been like 4 months, maybe.
That's it?
4 months? That's it.
Isn't that crazy?
Wow. Yes.
I feel like I need a shot of tequila right now. I feel like such a slacker. Yeah. I'm just trying to get to 1,000. I've been on there, I don't know, just maybe 2 months.
Couple months.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm like, I need 1,000 so I can go live because we need to go live and talk about shit.
We need to go. Yes. Yeah. You'll get there. Just keep posting. You'll get there.
I will.
I don't know.
Well, the reason I asked Julie to join me today, and thank you so much for doing this, is so all my life, I've really been fascinated with the human body. That's why I'm in the medical field. I'm in the medical administrative field only because I became a young mother and had to get to work. But my dream job, I thought back then, was to be like an ICU nurse. Like I wanted all the blood and guts, right? And I watched nothing but documentaries. I don't watch things like Grey's Anatomy, which I'm sure is an awesome show, but I like the real stuff. So when I stumbled on a live that Julie was doing, she was I think it was entitled like Death and Dying. And I was like, oh, right up my alley. People think that's so morbid, but I'm like, no, I'm fascinated by the human body. I'm also fascinated with the thought of the afterlife and the spirit world, but just sort of like, it's just always in my mind. So I was like, well, let me listen to see what this chick is talking about. And you, Julie, just answered in a way that I felt like you keep it plain and you keep it easy to understand, yet still accurate medically, because I do have I'm a trained transcriptionist too. So I do know a lot of anatomy that I remember, and I remember a lot of terminology. So I could put it together, but you really keep it plain. You keep it real. You're not afraid to cuss if need be, yet you are filled with compassion, and it just oozes out of you on your lives when you're dealing with people.
Oh my God, thank you. I love the lives. I love going live. It's so fun. Who knew?
Is it so weird when people can't really talk back to you? I mean, you've got to like sit and scroll and try to read the comments.
Yes. Like it feels a little embarrassing because I know I've been on the other side of watching a live, So to sit there and be like, trying to scroll through and having like the dead silence, it just feels a little weird, This is still really new to me. So,
yeah.
But for the most part, I really like teaching and everyone's really engaged. So
is there one video or was it right out of the gate where you just had a ton of views and all of a sudden all these followers hit? Like, how did that happen?
Yeah, so I was like you. So I had a few friends here who had gone through their family members being on hospice, and then COVID, and it was kind of on people's minds, and everyone knew I was a hospice nurse. So I would talk to some people, and I would have just a bunch of people in a row being like, "Wow, you really need to do a podcast, or you really need to tell people about this because the stuff you're saying is like I never knew it, and it's amazing." And at first I tried to do a podcast, but I didn't have anyone to produce it. And I didn't know what I was doing. And it was just overwhelming. And I was like, oh, this is not what I want to do.
Right.
I went home for the first time after, a year and a half during COVID. We were vaccinated, I think. And I went home to see my family and my nieces were doing TikTok. And I thought it was the stupidest thing. And I was kind of making fun of them. And they're like, whatever, you're old. Like, and then I started realizing like, oh my gosh, this is actually kind of great. You can make 1 little minute videos and it sends it out to a bunch of people. And like, if people like it, they'll watch it. And so I was like, I'm just going to try this. And I think it was 4 days in, one of my videos like hit and it just went viral. And then I don't know, it just hasn't stopped since. So I don't understand.
I think what it is it's kind of, we were talking a little bit before we started recording about, this is a topic, death and dying, and what does it look like? And what does it feel like? And how do we cope with it? And what does it mean to be on hospice versus palliative care? Because unless you live in this world, medical world, you may not have ever heard those terms until either you yourself are dying or terminal or your loved one is. And so I think that a lot of people just won't admit it, that they have the same fascination with death that I do. And when I say fascination, I don't mean like, oh, I want to go run and die. I mean, like, it's fascinating to me how our bodies are built. And you say this so well when you, and I'm probably going to say it wrong, so correct me, but there was many of videos I've seen you say, our bodies were wired to process death, just like our bodies can make it through birth, right? How do you say that? Because I think that's so simple, but it hit me.
Yeah, well, no, you said it perfect. Our bodies were built to survive birth, and they're built physiologically to die.
Yeah.
Right. So like it can happen if we're lucky enough. I mean, I hate using that word, lucky, whatever that means. But like,
right.
I would like to die a natural death on hospice where I know I'm passing. I don't know when, but soon. And it's like this gradual thing. I wouldn't mind that. I can't really speak when it's like sudden death or car accidents. It's a little different, right? But when our body is shutting down in a natural way, even if it's from a disease that's not natural, right? A cancer or something, it still knows what to do and actually has built-in mechanisms to help. And the less we mess with those things, the better the death usually is.
Right.
And I just know that through one, because you do actually learn it, not really in nursing school, but like as a nurse and just through evidence-based practice. But two, just anecdotal evidence. I mean, time and time and time again, that's all you see.
Right.
And it's amazing.
Right.
To me.
It is. That's what I mean by fascinating. Like our bodies know what to do. It's like your cervix opens when you're going to deliver a baby, right? It's like it automatically happens. I wish that I would have known you in 2016 when my dad was passing, because I sat with him as he took his last breath, and I was with him for the last 3 weeks, and that process of all the things, and I'm going to touch on that later. And it was so frightening.
Mm-hmm.
It was so frightening. And had I seen your videos, oh my gosh, I would have been so prepared. It probably would have went so much better for all of us. So when I say to you, oh my gosh, the lives you are touching, the information you're putting out is invaluable. But let's give a little background. So how long have you been a nurse, and at what point did you end up working hospice?
I've been a nurse for 14 years. I was an ICU nurse first for like the first, I guess 9, I would say 10, but like 9 or 10, and then I transitioned it over to hospice. And I mean, kind of, I did a bunch of other things in between. I did travel nursing and different things. I was just trying to find my way. I also like to talk to nurses in general to educate them about really trying to find your way. Because when I was an ICU nurse, this was not the type of Julie you saw. I did not, I mean, I'm glad I did it. I learned a lot, but I wasn't happy. I was super burnt out. I hated nursing. I thought I made the wrong career choice, and then I spent a couple of years kind of dawdling here and there in different areas. And anyway, I finally made it to hospice, and it was like life-changing, because it was like, oh, this is where I belong. This is what I love.
To be. Yeah.
So I always try to encourage nurses to just keep trying other things. You don't have to stay in the same spot because you've been there. And I did it for way too long. I mean, 9-10 years, that's way too long.
ICU is tough. And I imagine, I know, because I've been in ICU as the patient, and I feel like I owe those nurses an apology. I ended up septic after my 14-hour reconstruction surgery number 1. I had an incision split open on my chest wall where they had done a tissue transplant on the radiated side, and so I had a staph infection. Ended up septic. So it was all bad, but I literally owe them my life, and I feel like I owe them a lot of apologies.
But do you think, we're used to it.
I know, right? So do you think that obviously ICU was good for you? Would you recommend other nurses not go directly into hospice, but kind of serve patients in other aspects before they try hospice?
I want everyone to have their own journey.
Yeah.
But if I could give advice, I would say don't go into hospice first, because there are places where you can work in a hospice home where you're around other nurses and they can kind of keep their eye on you while you're nursing, but most hospices, you're by yourself in your car with you and the patient in their home, and it's you. You have a doctor kind of to call, but for the most part, it's like, you got to know what to do and what's going on. So to have a background like myself, where in the ICU, I mean, oh my gosh, the learning curve there is insane, So I had this really good background of like what it's supposed to look like, like what to do if you were trying to save someone's life, or, and then what it looks like when you're not. So it just helped so much. I couldn't imagine trying to be a new nurse and not have direct guidance like a minute away,
Right.
Like someone right behind you to say yes or no, or so I would advise them to always go in the hospital. I think ICU, because at least you only get 2 patients. They're really sick, but only 2.
Right.
That's where they're not as sick, but you have a lot. That's even more stress. I don't know.
I couldn't. I don't know how you guys do it. Right. Can you briefly explain to our listeners what's the difference between palliative care and hospice?
Yes. So I will try to briefly do it.
Well, we got all night.
You know why it's a little hard? Because what I've learned is and this could be wrong, but this is what I've seen through working with different agencies. Palliative care seems to be, it's not fully regulated by Medicare. Okay. So it's not super standardized. So like some companies will give you X, Y, and Z for palliative care, and some companies will give you other X, Y, and Z. So it's like, I don't want to say a blanketed statement about palliative care because it definitely changes. So, so with palliative care, like what the agency I work for now, the way I always started is palliative care is basically a no-brainer to do. If you can meet criteria to get onto palliative care, you should always do it because it's just extra help. Okay. And it's basically, you have to have a diagnosis, and this is very quote unquote, it's very general, a general statement of some kind of diagnosis where you may likely pass within a year. Whether you do or not, we don't know. But like, that's the general statement. That's one of the criteria. Then you have to have some kind of skilled need, meaning like, not like you can't go to the bathroom by yourself. That's not a skilled need. A skilled need is like managing pain, managing shortness of breath, managing a wound, managing irretractable nausea and vomiting, like some kind of thing like that. And then you have to prove like functional decline. You have to prove that it's difficult to leave the home. And then if you can prove all those things, then you get basically almost everything like hospice does. You get a doctor, a nurse, a social worker, a home health aide to come to your house to help manage those symptoms while you're still able to go in and out of the hospital if you need to. The classic patient, again, this isn't strict, but the classic patient is someone with cancer receiving chemo, radiation, and there are a lot of symptoms because of the chemo and radiation. So they're up and down, pain, nausea, vomiting, fevers, infection. Palliative care team is there to help with all of those things. So they don't have to spend all of their days in an ER trying to help with an infection or trying to help with pain.
I should have been on palliative care.
I know. Palliative care is amazing. There's like literally no reason not to do it. The reason why, but it's hard to get on because it's basically you get best of both worlds. So you really have to meet, at least where I work, very strict criteria to get on. Now, there's other agencies that don't give you as much. So it's easier to get on it, but you don't receive as much care. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Now, hospice is regulated by Medicare. Even if you're getting it through private insurance, they're still getting reimbursed from Medicare. So it's very regulated. Hospice basically says, here's who can be on hospice. You have to have less than 6 months to live, some kind of diagnosis where we think it's less than 6 months to live. Then depending on which diagnosis that is, like which terminal diagnosis you have, there's specialized criteria for each one. And it's actually easier to get on. You don't have to have much criteria except for the terminal diagnosis of less than 6 months to live. And you're okay with no longer receiving treatment. So you can't say, well, I still want to get chemo and radiation and be on hospice. You have to say, the doctor's already told me I can't do anymore.
And you have to be, and you have to accept that and be in that space, because that's what we deal with at the Care Project.
Right.
Yeah.
We have friends that are now metastatic, and not just metastatic, but end of the road. Like this is really it. Your body is shutting down, even though you want to, in your mind, still continue to go to chemo. And we will suggest to them, you really should talk to, your social worker about the option of hospice. Well, my doctor says that, but I don't want to give up. I know. And we sit here frustrated and heartbroken because we love these people, but we're just like, you're not giving up. Like what you're doing is you're giving yourself a chance at the best quality of life for however long that is.
Yes. And hear this. People on there's been studies done that people on hospice tend to live longer because when you're that far, not gone, but when you're in this advanced disease that far, if you're doing last ditch resorts, which I don't blame you, I get it. The unknown is scary. Yes. And you don't want it, you want to do something. It's always the do thing, right? And I think doctors are a little, I don't want to like
keep
trash
it real
on doctors, but like oncologists sometimes I feel like want to give these last ditch things too. I don't know. It's like,
we deal with that. And I'm actually friends with my own oncologist now, because now she sends us patients to the Care Project, but she's a keep it real kind of girl. Yeah. And what she's expressed to me is that, because I asked her sort of for a little bit of guidance on like, when I'm dealing with a peer who is now terminal and they are in that state of, I don't want to give up. And I say to her, my frustration is they come in and they tell DJ and I, well, my doctor said, well, I could do this, but it's really not doing it. And the doctor's not really giving it to him straight. And I said, Dr. Ruby, you just give it to me straight. She goes, yeah, because you've told me to do that. You've told me and you've shown me that you can take it and that you want the truth. And there are some patients that come in and say, I don't care what you say. I'm not giving up. I want this. And she's telling him one more experimental chemo and your heart may go.
Right.
And that's what happened to our dear friend Shannon, who was only 36, because she had a 15-year-old daughter. She was, obviously fighting to live, but Cancer had just overtaken her body and there was nothing more she could do, but she just kept pushing and kept pushing. And we get it. But as a result, she died suddenly.
Yes.
Cardiac arrest, when in my mind, I'm assuming that she would have had a good chance at having a better quality and end of life had she just stopped that and gone on hospice.
Yeah.
And it's
hard because you have to meet the person where they're at too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like when people say like, what happens if they don't want to let go? It's like, you have to meet them where they're at.
Yeah.
So it's like a fine line of, how can you say to somebody, you're going to die? Because this is what I want to say, but how do I say it with kindness, right? Like, you are going to die either way. Do you want to die in the hospital? Probably traumatically, because I've witnessed that. Mm-hmm. Or do you want to die at home gradually and peacefully and probably live a little bit longer? I mean, the study showed it was like 29 days longer. So it's not like months longer, right?
But that's still a long time.
But still 29 days. Right. And you don't have the sickness from the chemo. So many patients I see that go on hospice start feeling better because they're not getting chemo and radiation. Mm-hmm. So they feel, not everybody, I don't want to act like,
we know.
It's blah, 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 but like a lot of times it is. That's why I'm so for it. People think, you're getting me on my soapbox if you could.
No, because I'm going to be, in a minute, I'm going to be in nursing school at the age of 50 trying to be a nurse. No, but you know what? I wrote this thing down. I had done a tiny bit of research and I came across this article and it said the National Institute on Aging says studies show that when a person enrolls in hospice, they are more likely to have increased family satisfaction. I don't know exactly what that means. Increased family satisfaction, better pain and symptom management. And then like I have a note to myself here that I've heard you say that they are often live longer, and it makes perfect sense. And I know people don't get it, but unless you've been there, done that, or sat with someone that you love and know, you may not get it. So trust the professional.
Right.
Trust the professional. Right?
And what happens is people come on, the people who, when I say that, right, and people go, oh yeah, my dad went on hospice and he died 3 days later, or didn't make it for 6 hours, and my heart goes out to them, but I want to say it's because he went on too late. Like it's not, and it's not their fault, right? But it's like that's what I want to push for hospice. Like I just said in an Instagram post, hospice is not a bad word, because it gets a really bad rap. People hear hospice and I go, oh no. I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready.
That's the first thing they say, Julie. I'm not right.
Yeah.
How many times have we said, we had a dear friend, Yvette, who passed away, 2 years ago?
Yes.
And she had a multitude of issues and her entire body was shutting down no matter what. Mm-hmm. Her brain, her body, everything. And we kept egging her, let us please help you get, she needed some assistance. Like, we'll help you. She had a dear friend who helped her along the way. And she went on it for a minute and then she came off because she wanted to still be able to go get chemo. But what we found, and I'll speak for both of us, and please chime in anytime, DJ, I'm running my mouth, but
that's okay.
But we've lost a lot of friends, and we've seen a lot of them go down that road where they just wait to the end and then they're angry. And it's like, I want to just smack them and go, look, I really think that what you said, what you want to say is, look, your body's shutting down. You're going to die. We don't know when, but it's coming. How do you want to go?
I know.
That needs to be a normal conversation.
Needs to be said just like that.
Exactly.
It does.
Yeah.
And I think that too, family members, somebody in the family needs to be able to have that conversation, even if it's just one-on-one privately. I remember when my dad was dying. My dad lost his first kidney when I was 14. He was at a barbecue. He went to the bathroom. When he urinated, it was all blood. He went out and told his buddy, and this couple who was like his best friends, and I call her Cheryl, Auntie Cheryl. She was like, oh, you're going to ER. And he's like, but I feel fine. She's like, that ain't right. So they go in. He had a tumor dead center in the middle of his kidney. So they took the one kidney, said, you can live with one. He was 40. It was my exact age when I was diagnosed. He lived fine for 20 years with that one kidney, and then it started to go. Then my Auntie Susie was able to give him one. It gave us another 9 years. Then it started to go. So he was in dialysis, not feeling well, got up from the chair from dialysis, fell because he was all, fell, cracked his knee open. I get a call. He's fallen. He's in the hospital. I'm like, Dad, I'm on my way. He lived in the Bay Area. So, an 8-hour road trip or an hour flight. And I said, My daughter had a fashion show the next day. I said, can you wait one day or do I need to come now? I'll come now. But she's a model. She's in Hollywood on this, this big show. He's like, no, go to the show, then come see me. All right, great. The dad I knew would never say, nah, I'm fine. You don't need to come. He was like, yeah, I think you might want to come. I was like, oh shit. Mm-hmm. So I get on a flight.
He said that.
Yes. I get on a flight. My little brother, one of them who lives up there, picks me up, takes me directly to the hospital. He's in the bed and he looks okay. He looks a little, his color's off a little bit, but he looks like he's happy I'm there. He hands me his house keys. He just bought a new house. I say, okay, I'll go find the house. So I get over to his house. Dad, I'll come see you tomorrow. I get there the next day. He's not in that room. I'm like, where's my dad? This is a tiny hospital, like 2-3 floors. They're like, oh, he was trying to get out of bed last night and, his knee is cracked in half, so he can't walk. He was getting out of bed and having some real bad, hallucinations. And he thought someone was coming in his room to kill him. So we had to move him down where we could monitor him. He's in this other room. And I'm like thinking, oh my God, is he strapped down? Like, what is happening? I'm thinking he's on morphine or something. I have a terrible reaction to morphine, right? I'm like, what medication is he on? I'm thinking he's got to be in pain for this knee. They're like, nothing. He refuses to take anything. He let us give him a little Tylenol. And I'm like, well, then what the hell is he hallucinating about? I don't get it. Well, again, all the toxins are building up in his body because he's not right. So there's all that. And I'm like, holy crap. So fast forward, I'm there for like a week. My brother's in New York on a business trip. I'm in and out of the hospital with him. He's delusional. Mm-hmm. He's agitated. He's mean as hell. He is talking to people that aren't in the room about me, about my brother, about like all the things you talk about in your videos. He was picking at the air and I'd say, Dad, what are you doing? Well, don't you see that? I'm putting it in my pocket. It's money. And I was like, okay, put it in your pocket. I'm trying to go with it because I'm trying not to agitate him. He wanted to keep getting out of bed. It was all bad. It was all bad. And finally, my brother got in there and they said,
can I ask you a question super quick? Was he on dialysis while he was in there?
They were trying to give him dialysis. Okay. So yes, they did start it again. And they were like, he's not eligible for another transplant. Now, my dad and I had already had this conversation. This was a very macho, pride-filled man. He did not want to live like that. And he said, I already asked my doctor, if I were to stop dialysis, how long would I have to live? And they told him maybe a week. And I had told him, this was like months before. And I said, well, Dad, I'm going to need some notice. If you decide to do that, I respect that. But you need to give me notice because, I got 3 kids down here and I need to make arrangements to be there. And he's like, no. And we laughed and joked. We all have a sick sense of humor in my family.
Yeah.
But then this happened and it was like, what is happening? So anyway, they end up taking him for like an MRI. He comes back from the MRI in a completely altered state. He's now telling me this story of how he was in this gun battle, how me and my niece, Christy, were a great shot, how our cousin Tony, who actually lives in New Mexico, was the captain. And the only way I could get him to listen to me and stay in bed was I would say, Tony said, and I'd threaten him with my cousin Tony. And he'd go, oh, Tony said that. And I thought my dad was a jokester. Mm-hmm. This is a man that used to run and fall down the hall and then be like, oh, I broke my leg. And I'm like, really, Dad? So I thought at first he was joking. And then I looked at the nurse. I was like, he's like, yeah, no, got toxins all in it. I was like, well, fucking do something. And at that point, then they came in and talked to us about hospice. My brother and I looked at each other. We're like, we don't want to take him home and have to care for him. Like we had enough money and my dad had enough money in his bank that we could hire like round the clock caregivers in between hospice. Thank God. But we were afraid to take him home because we just knew he was going to go at any second. But we ended up taking him home a day or so later and he lasted about another week. But if I had known then what I know now, just from the little bit of time I've been watching your videos, I think he would have gone sooner and more peacefully. Because
was he still confused once he got home? That's what I'm curious about.
Well, at some point they got him relatively stable. Yeah. It seemed like when the ambulance came and the guys came to transport him from the hospital to his house, which was only like a 10-minute drive, it's so awesome with him. We made sure that he really understood because he kept saying, I want to go home. He thought he was at dialysis at the center. So he kept saying, I'm done with dialysis. Get my effing coat. Let's go. And he was mad at me because I wasn't taking him home. And at some point he was so delusional, I had to like put my hands on his arms, stand over him on the bed, at the side of the bed. And I looked him dead in his face and I said, Dad, if you don't let us take care of you, you're going to die. Like today. Is that what you want? Stephen's not here yet. Is that what you want? And he kind of like snapped out of it and looked at me.
Yeah.
And then I felt horrible that I said that, but I was crazy at that point.
Well, agitation like that will make everyone crazy.
I was
so hard.
Begging the nurses. I was like, give him a shot of something, knock him out, do something, because I can't take it anymore. And they didn't have any more nurses in there. I was afraid he was going to fall.
Yeah.
I left that night. They got him to sleep. I left that night. I came back. His bed was lowered to the floor because he was still trying to get out of bed. Take him home. He seemed calm. He finally got in a place of calm. And then hospice came in and did their thing. And I am indebted to them for life. They were amazing.
Good. Oh, good. I'm so glad.
Amazing, which is another reason what caught my attention when I saw your name, Hospice Nurse Julie. I was like, yes. People don't realize. Let's tell people, because we could go on forever. What all does hospice do? Okay,
so I like to start with the one thing we don't do. So, because I think this is a big misconception. So the one thing we don't do is provide 24-hour care. So we do not have a nurse there to change someone, to give them the meds. There's not like a nurse there 24/7. All of that falls on the family or the family hiring someone, which is awful. I don't agree with that, but that's how it is.
Yeah.
So what we do provide is a team of people. So a doctor who you do see, not often, but did you see yours or no?
I don't think so.
They usually come out at least once. They are actually really, really involved. We're just more their eyes and ears. So we have a doctor, a nurse, a social worker, and a home health aide. So someone can come and bathe your loved one. Usually 2's max, sometimes 3 times a week. Just depends. And then there's a chaplain too, if someone wants a chaplain, and then volunteer services. Sometimes they have musical therapy, depending on the agency.
Mm-hmm.
The nurse technically per Medicare only has to come out once a week. So if everything's cool, they probably will come out once a week, but usually they come out more often because it's a 24-hour service. So you guys need to call us. So the more the person calls or the family calls, the more will come out. And we do have nurses on 24/7. So we are available to come out at 2 a.m. or on Christmas Eve or anything's going on. And then when someone's in the actively dying phase, every agency is different here, but usually when someone's actively dying, meaning like hours to a day or so before death, the nurse will come out every day to check in. We do have 24-hour continuous care, which is when a nurse is there all the time. But that usually it's only happens if some kind of symptom is out of control or like something's not managed. But there are different agencies that I feel like use that service a little more than like Medicare would probably want them to, right? And then that gives other agencies who actually follow Medicare guidelines a bad rap because then people won't do it.
Right.
But yeah, it should rarely happen. Not that I agree with this, but it should rarely happen. If it is happening all the time, that agency is basically not following Medicare guidelines.
Yeah. Now, when my grandmother was in hospice, we were very fortunate because we had nurses round the clock. She was 102. And she was in dementia, because she fell down and she hit her head. So once that started, then the doctor said, okay, there's very little that we can do. And so you need to start her on hospice. But we had nurses constantly coming, and she lasted probably another month and a half.
And you had a nurse there all the time?
We had a nurse there all the time, weekends. And then they would call in because, when they're in that state, they don't sleep normally. They want to be up and walking. They're seeing things like your dad kind of thing, but they would order medicine like at 2:00 in the morning. And then we'd have a driver come at 3:00 and deliver medicine that they needed.
Yeah.
And they took care of all of that. And
yeah.
even though I had Eloisa that was there with me, they were there and they would stay in the room with her. And Eloisa would be out here helping whatever they needed. But
That's
it
amazing.
was wonderful. I'm like in total grateful to have them. And
that is amazing. Because you just brought up another good point, DJ. We do provide all medications. All medications can be delivered. equipment can be delivered, supplies can be delivered. We are like kind of governed again by Medicare. So it's like whatever Medicare will approve. There's like basically specific things Medicare will say yes to or no to.
No, we had full supplies. We had everything.
They were fantastic.
They were fantastic.
Yeah. Yes. By the time the ambulance came, in fact, the only reason my dad went home the following day is we just had to wait for the bed to be delivered. So my brother went home, and like my dad had this small little living room and removed the whatever it was, the coffee table and something else to make room for a bed to be right there in the living room. And the guys just came and transported him. But I mean, they brought everything. It was fantastic. Mm-hmm. And then they educated us on how to administer any medication if we needed to in between times. But like I said, we had hired a nursing agency to have somebody there with us, because my brother and I were of the mindset of, first of all, I was exhausted from the previous 2 weeks of being in and out of the hospital and of no use, really, other than to just sit there and be a daughter. I just needed to be a daughter. Yeah. I didn't need to be a nurse at that time. Yeah. But I realized that everybody isn't fortunate to have that. What happens when there's a case, like we've known some people who are single, they're not married, they don't have any kids, they don't have any family, and now they're on hospice, and it isn't round the clock care. Is there something, mandated with Medicare where they get put into a facility, or what happens in that case? Yeah,
that they would be mandated by Medicare to go to a facility.
Okay. So there are facilities just for hospice, or is it like a skilled nursing facility
It's usually a skilled nursing facility, and then we would still visit them in that skilled nursing facility. But there are others, there are other states that I'm sure California is a big state. I'm sure they have hospice homes somewhere here. I don't know of any in Los Angeles, but
there's a documentary I watched about a doctor in San Francisco who has one of those homes where you go and you
I think I've seen it.
Yeah. He's hot too.
Really? Maybe I haven't seen it.
Girl, you need to go meet him. Maybe we need a field trip. But he's this most compassionate. Like he has all these different modalities to just, they do anything from like rituals, just to make them feel good. It's like, but it's this beautiful setting too.
If we had hospice homes here, I would totally push for people to go into hospice homes. My best friend's dad, who lives in Florida, was put into they put him in a hospice home, and they loved it.
Yeah.
They loved it. It was amazing.
I think I would love to do that.
I think I would too.
I'm going to put in my request.
There you go.
But yeah, so we actually had, in the other agency I worked for, so I don't want to say what agencies I worked for, especially what I'm working for now, but there was because anyone can open a hospice company. So there's private people who are just like, I want to start a hospice company, and they start one. So that's who I used to work for. And now I work for like a big corporation who really follows the guidelines very strictly. There's pluses and minuses. Like, I think because it's such a big corporation that I work for now, they really follow the guidelines of Medicare, which can be a bust sometimes because it's like, we really follow what they say we need to do. But it's a plus because they have a hospital and a pharmacy, and they can kind of like do a bunch of things that other private agencies wouldn't do. So there's a plus and minus. But the private agency, we had a couple people who were young, no family, couldn't get onto Medi-Cal because they made too much money, but didn't have enough money to do whatever. So we just gave them continuous care until they died. Right. So it's like, now that's not very legal. Like, you're not supposed to do that, but it's like, what are we supposed to do? Leave this person to, we can't. So we just did continuous care.
Yeah, we talk about that. I mean, because we've had that like with our friend Yvette. I mean, she had a great friend. Like I said, she had a great friend or two, but they still had to work full time, and her kids really weren't able to help. And there's only so much that we could do. And then, all bad. I mean, what you do is amazing. I feel like we could talk all night.
And she is right. They did go on for days. Maybe not days, but at least for another 40 minutes. So make sure you check out the show next week to get the second part with Hospice Nurse Julie. Please do me a favor, rate, review, and subscribe the show. You can also find Hospice Nurse Julie on TikTok under that same name. Remember, we don't make any money on this podcast, but we really do appreciate you helping us get the word out. So tell a friend.
Thank you for listening to Handle with Care, Cancer and Beyond. Please let us know what you think of the show by leaving a rating and review. And don't forget to share it with a friend. For more information or to connect with Carrie, go to thecareprojectinc.org. Thank you for listening to Handle with Care, Cancer and Beyond. Please let us know what you think of the show by leaving a rating and review. And don't forget to share it with a friend. For more information or to connect with Carrie, go to thecareprojectinc.org.
Judy was boring.
Hello.
Then Judy discovered ChumbaCasino.com.
It's my little escape.
Now Judy's the life of the party.
Oh, baby, mama's bringing home the bacon.
Whoa, take it easy, Judy. The Chumba life is for everybody. So go to ChumbaCasino.com and play over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Lucky Land Casino, asking people, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
Lucky? In line at the deli, I guess?
Aha, in my dentist's office. More than once, actually.
Do I have to say?
Yes, you do.
In the car before my kids' PTA meeting.
Really?
Yes.
Excuse me, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
I never win and tell.
Well, there you have it. You can get lucky anywhere, playing at LuckyLandSlots.com. Play for free right now. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.